Dr. Shravani Reddy, and I handle clinical operations for Medvarsity. I will be your moderator for the session today. So before we have Captain Usha with us. So we understand today's session is about looking at nurses as leaders for future healthcare and how to transform your career there. So, hi ma'am, welcome to the session today. I'm Dr. Shravani here.
Hi, Dr. Shravani.
How are you doing, ma'am? Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. I'm doing very well.
So, guys, we have Captain Usha Banerjee with us. She is the Group Director Nursing for the Apollo Hospitals Group. She's been with Max Healthcare Institute earlier and Manipal Hospital as well as the Group Director Nursing. She was with the Indian Armed Forces in the Military Nursing Service. And then she's been heading the nursing wings in the different hospitals that I've mentioned. She's had a career spanning over different domains within the nursing fraternity. So there's nobody else we could have had for the session today, ma'am, talking about nursing leadership. So we'll begin with the session. And as we go on with the discussion, we'll take questions from the audience as well. Yeah?
Good.
Ma'am, so like they say, our experiences change our life choices and how we choose things. What was that one experience that you would say that has prepared you for your profession or your career? What changed?
Well, I think I will be very descriptive here. It's a long story.
Please go ahead.
If you might know, I don't know, many of them probably don't know that I'm dropout of an engineering college.
Oh, is it?
Yes. I've been good at my academics. There's an echo on this particular, and I think it's important because it would inspire the youngsters, if at all people very young and aspiring background, excelled in sports, excelled in a lot of other non-academic activities, topped school. When we were young, we had to take science as a stream, and we did physics, chemistry, maths, and biology, which gave us an eligibility to appear for a common entrance test, both for medicine and for engineering. And being a topper, I was always being prepared up for medical sciences, and that was my passion. I always wanted to be a doctor. And right from the time I was a small little girl, I think everybody addressed me as doctor. So that's how I grew up. I recommended, okay, why don't you join nursing? And I had no idea what nursing is all about. And I entered the nursing college in the Armed Forces Medical College. Parallelly, I had a cousin of mine who entered the medical college. My first cousin entered the medical college. I entered the nursing college. And every day when I started my journey, I stepped out of my school, I would always be so heartbroken that why can't I have been chosen into the medical college? And I knew I was better than them. And I had this strong belief that destiny wanted me to be in the nursing school. And trust me, the first 3 months, I was outstanding. I played almost all games for the medical college. I championed and led the medical college into dramatics, into debates, into athletics, into sports. And then I beat all the medical students in my academic performance. So I knew that I'm destined to shine. I'm destined to outsmart the doctors. And I did that with some amount of a competitive spirit. And I really did well. And once I did well, year after year, I had this thing in me that, nursing must move to the next level because I enjoyed the privileges of. So I just wanted to tell the youngsters sitting here, yes, I started on a different journey, but I think I capitalized on the opportunity that was given to me. I came out of AFMC with a President's Medal, and I am still remembered in my college and the alma mater. The Indian Army recognizes my efforts, and I recently was a chief guest at the Armed Forces Medical College. So that's my journey from where I started. And I'm here in this country to make a difference to the profession that I belong. I've embraced it and want to make it big. Well, I think the values that I have cultivated stems from my very roots, where I belong to a family where most of them have served the Indian Army. So a very good upbringing. And of course, I've had the opportunity for great schooling. And I'm very, very fortunate that I went into Armed Forces Medical College, which taught, I did say that. Yes, did you hear it, or do I repeat what I said?
Ma'am, you were talking about the upbringing and the kind of schooling you've had.
Yes, and I was fortunate enough to go to one of the most prestigious institutions to take up my career,
Right.
and that's the Armed Forces Medical College, which taught me not only great academics and clinical exposure, but also enabled me to possess some life skills, which I have carried on with. Being a soldier, having trained in the armed forces, I bring to my table a lot of discipline, devotion, and of course, I feel integrity as one of the most important values.
Right.
So I think I'm respected for being a very fair leader who brings in knowledge and integrity to my table.
Right. Right. So we're talking about discipline and integrity.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. And ma'am, how important do you think is continued learning for nurses for their career development in the long run? How important it is for them?
Well, I think the most important for any professional is to have expertise in their domain. Now, what makes me stand apart, and I don't know if the youngsters know that I am heading 64 institutions in the Apollo group.
Yes.
I not only do just nursing leadership and nursing management, I'm key and integral to the business development of the Apollo group. Right. I'm on the board of directors. I'm on the board of directors with the promoters to enable them to undertake a transformational journey. Right. For the entire Apollo brand. So we're working for 10 years ahead of time. Right. I'm also a part of the senior management of the organization. So I really pitch in wearing multiple hats in multiple roles. And this couldn't have been possible if I didn't bring to my table good amount of learning. And for all that I bring to the table is people should know that I did my MBA way back in 2000. I graduated from one of the best business schools. Right. You know, I did my MBA when nobody ever thought of getting into an MBA program. I hold an MBA in HR. I have done every single program that the country could think of in terms of quality management and systems, process and outcomes. I'm a lead auditor in ISO. Right. I have been representing JCI. I've been on the technical head of NABH. I have done 2 years. I have done a 2-year program in training and development. I went to evening college when my son was born. Right. I have trained myself in becoming a great administrator by doing hospital administration. And currently I'm doing my PhD. So learning has never stopped for me. 30 years and I'm still learning. Right. Right. So I think that's the most important thing for any good leader, to continuously learn, gain new knowledge, expand their bandwidth into lateral aspects of what the organization is all about. And that's what makes me stand apart. And all these girls and boys sitting here must know that I've really not climbed the ladder one step at a time. I served the army as a clinical practitioner and as a coach mentor for disaster management, and then straight away managed to pole vault and leapfrog into becoming a...
Ma'am, so that's very evidently understood how you've tried to continuously upskill yourself and upgrade yourself in various domains in healthcare, not once. You've spoken about HR, training, quality, and now you're talking about a PhD. So I clearly understand how one needs to, like you rightly mentioned, laterally also try to develop along with the vertical development. Ma'am, if you have to go forward with the discussion, budding healthcare professionals, they look up to seniors like you for advice, be it clinical advice or management advice or leadership advice. So when somebody comes up to you and asks you for any advice like that, what is that one skill that you would suggest them to surely develop which will come in handy during their career paths as they go forward? One thing that will be key.
I think one thing that is key for people to become great leaders is great communication.
Right.
You won't be spotted, you won't be heard if you have not mastered the art of speaking.
Right.
If you're not a good orator, you don't have the art of being polite, you don't have the art of saying no, you
Right.
are not friendly but firm, then you don't really stand a chance of being in the midst of people who have some intellectual capability.
Ma'am, coming from the clinical background, I'm sure you agree with me. A lot of the times in clinical practice, I'm a clinical doctor myself, communication skills and soft skills are not at all spoken about as a necessary skill, if you know what I mean. We only talk about clinical trainings or, administrative trainings, but very few recognize the importance of the skill that you spoke about, communication skills. So is it important for the healthcare fraternity also to realize that it is time that we understand what we need to learn to go forward and probably include that in our learning and development programs, ma'am?
Absolutely, because I have been talking to the councils and I've been talking to whomever I meet in the nursing profession, that it's so important for people, irrespective of whether it's a nurse or it is any other individual,
Yes.
including soft skills is so very important, because you're dealing with patients, you're dealing with emotions, you're dealing with complexity and challenges in your day-to-day life.
Right.
And every scenario is so different.
Right.
Every patient is so different. And if you don't being communicative, whether it's verbal or non-verbal.
Ma'am, international accreditations are seen to be the it thing in healthcare today. They are seen to be of high value these days. What is your take on it, ma'am?
Yeah, I remember my days when I was in Manipal and I was talking to the management there saying that, we need some kind of an accreditation to
Right.
ensure that our organization stands visibly apart from the rest of them.
Right.
And at that point in time, we just did not have any clinical standards accreditation process. So we went in for an ISO.
Okay.
And I realized bringing in ISO itself was so very, meaningful to the organization, because it helped us put a lot of processes into place, and we had some great outcomes.
Right.
And I had a CEO who shared my viewpoint at that point in time, and it said that we should bring Joint Commission to India. And people said, how is that possible? And we started our conversations with JECO. But unfortunately, I moved on from that organization, came to Delhi at that point in time, and then moved into Apollo Hospitals. And I'm very, very glad that my thought process that I seeded in my own mind turned into a reality, because Apollo Hospital Delhi was the first one to bring JECO to India, called the Joint Commission International. We did a lot of work to work around these standards.
Right.
But ultimately, what benefited is great outcomes in patient care. It brought teams together, and it set a gold standard in terms of quality for healthcare in India. Today, I think most of the international patients choose Apollo hospitals or the like hospitals, basically because they are accredited by these international standards. For me, it's a wow factor because it's so clinically oriented. It talks about stringent patient safety measures. And I think, in my opinion, even the schools and colleges of nursing should be accredited by such standards. Then we realized that the international standards are very expensive and not many hospitals can afford it. So we sat as a technical team, and I'm one of the members who sat on the technical board. We created the National Accreditation Board for Hospitals in India, which is a local Indian standard, and you know about it.
Right.
And then we moved one step forward by bringing in nursing excellence. So for me, I've been a part of that transition, and I'm a part of that journey, and it's absolutely brilliant to be associated with any organization. And I wish and hope that every organization in this country adopts international or national standards, because it's ultimately benefiting the organization, the patient, and the staff.
Yeah.
In a very large manner. Yeah.
Ma'am, it's a wonderful journey and the transition that you've seen being part of the NABH board. So, ma'am, healthcare industry, like any other industry today, is constantly evolving, and especially so in the last decade, we've seen a huge shift in the healthcare industry, both in terms of business and also in terms of patient care delivery also. But ma'am, as a senior in the industry who's seen various aspects of these changes and being part of some of them, what are the changes you would still like to see happen in the future? What are those changes that you want to see here?
Well, I think I always consider myself to belong to that lucky generation who's seen this, evolution of a revolution in healthcare. I saw it at its peak glory when
Ma'am, are you still with us?
And my teachers who, can you hear me?
Yeah, ma'am, please go on.
Can you hear me? The last 10 years has been really, really fantastic. We've come a long way. We've really moved the country into a different paradigm. But I think the next few years is going to be much more interesting. And I'm glad I still have a decade to go before I retire. So I would have seen both sides of the world.
Right.
What I see that has grown in is, the patients have become very knowledgeable, which forces the healthcare system to be more responsible.
Right.
These international and national accreditations have brought in some kind of credibility and trust, and it has seen some great outcomes. I have seen that insurance penetration into the country has brought in access for the poor and for the middle class, which was not so when we were much younger.
Absolutely.
And what I would like to see in the next few years before I really leave my shoes, I hang up my shoes, to see that, artificial intelligence come into the daily work, because we are looking at very, very innovative and very customized solutions for our patients. I would like to see a lot of predictive analysis being brought into the hospitals, which can enable care. I love this thing about genomes, and I love robotics, which makes accuracy, precision while we deal with patients. I would like to see a lot of information technology being leveraged into the day-to-day aspects, which will enable nurses to get a lot of their care processes into place. I would like to take away a lot of redundancy and duplication and the kind of loads that nurses do right now while managing their shifts. I would like to see nurses empowered like I am. I would like to see a lot of the young nurses climb this great ladder of success. I would like nurses to be positioned as CFOs, COOs, CEOs, as decision-making bodies. We become responsible caregivers, and the respect that a nurse deserves richly comes into practice. I have big dreams for healthcare. I have big dreams for this country. I'm an Indian. I've stayed back in this country. All my friends are in the US. So I would like to see a lot of nurses stay back and make this country much more richer than it is right now in terms of health provision for the citizens of this country.
Ma'am, very, very well put. We've come to the last question. This is something we all want to hear from you. Well, it's very, very evident, and for all those who haven't, known much details about you, they've through this webinar they've come to know what you have achieved. So now that we know that you've done so much in the course of your long career, what else is on the bucket list career-wise, ma'am? What is it that you're aiming for?
Well, I've already got a lot of opportunities to become an MD, CEO, CFO, and all that because I have so many qualifications and I bring in some rich experience and God's been very kind to me. But I honestly have not moved out of nursing.
Right.
I would like to stay there. I would like to stay there, owning up the nursing leadership, not only for my organization, but also for my co-organizations where I belong to, and also to the councils and the policy making. I would like to still stay back in nursing and I would like to retire from nursing. And my bucket list would constitute that I any more leaders who can capably take up leadership in many organizations.
Right.
So that journey is on. That journey is on.
Yeah.
That takes time.
Yeah.
And my second wish list would be that I create more and more organizations which come out with the best possible patient outcomes. This
Right.
transformation journey that I'm talking about, where I'm on the board next 10 years, I really want to be a game changer, which can set my leadership way ahead of the rest of them to follow and make life easier, both for the patient and for the nurse. And of
Right.
course, I have my personal ambitions. I'm a dancer, I'm an actor, so maybe I want to act in a film. Maybe I would want many more people to see my dance. I don't know. I'm growing old, but yes, I'm passionate about it, and I know that I will fulfill my dreams before I leave. So, and the last part of it, I always believe in life, and it was taught to me very young as I was a small girl, and my mother taught me this, and I love to say this every time. My mother said, in life, you have to learn, and learning is continuous. Till the last day of your life, you would learn. And then she said, you have to earn. You have to earn. You know, you need a decent life. You need good things in life. Because you have to love yourself. So I did earn. And now the last phase of my life in my bucket list is to return. So I return back to my organization.
We really loved that you want to try acting and dancing, apart from, of course, the actual things that you said. But it's very exciting and encouraging to hear from a senior like you talk about not just about professional things, but also personally how you still want to take yourself forward. That's very, very encouraging for all of us, ma'am. Before we take some questions from the attendees and students today, ma'am, since we have titled the webinar as Nursing Leadership Taking Their Practice to Next Level, ma'am, if somebody who's attending the webinar today, it could be a nurse or it could be somebody like me or from my team who's attending. If we want to take, and specifically for nurses to take their leadership and career ahead, what do you think is that next step that they should do?
I think the next step for everyone to do is to kind of start working and preparing themselves to reach their dreams and ambitions. It has to start very early in life. It has to start very, very early in life. I told you my story when I was in the Armed Forces Medical College. I knew I couldn't make it to the medical college. I was put in the nursing college, but I had big dreams right then. And I knew I could break all shackles and all norms, and I could be positioned much ahead of the rest of them. So there are no rules to any organization. There are no rules to growth and success. If you dream big, they say dreams are like wine, and I'm drunk with mine. So if you're really, really ambitious, you want to make a difference, I think destiny just paves way for you. So just go ahead and see yourself positioned where you wish to be 10 years, 20 years down the line, and you start walking on that path. And I'm not being philosophical, it's true.
Okay. Ma'am, very beautifully put. Ma'am, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, very, very beautifully put. And this webinar, we've intended to address the nurses
I think
and
this
give them a
webinar is
perspective of a
really,
leader
really troublesome today.
and
Yeah.
get some insights. So that was the intent. But all of us attending as a team here are also very, very encouraged and impressed with your thoughts and the way you've shaped your career. It's truly inspiring for anybody, not just a nurse. But I think if you're looking at people who are still growing from a junior level or at a mid-senior level, what you've spoken will definitely add value to each and every one of us today. And we wish you all the best for all those things that you wanted to try and do in the next decade, both on the board and also in general with your personal ambitions. We hope that you have good health and strength to take those dreams forward. Thank you so much for joining us, ma'am. I hope you have had a good time sharing your thoughts as well.
Oh yes, I do. I'm a storyteller. I'm an artist. I'm a performer. So I would love to speak my story to many, and I'm sure somebody would be inspired. And people who see me work definitely get inspired. So I would love to speak to anyone for that matter. Because when you change your dreams, you still can make it big.
Yes. Yes, ma'am, I'm sure each and every one of us here are truly inspired and encouraged by your talk today. Thank you so much for sparing your time for this session for our attendees with Medvarsity today. Thank you so much. We hope you have a good journey ahead, and we hope to talk to you some other time about another interesting topic. And we would like to see you in many more events and conferences and conventions at national and international level. So all the best to you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the group? Anything
yes,
that?
Yes,
okay.
we will do that, ma'am. Let me just, for all the attendees, if there's anybody who wants to ask a personal question about your profession and how to go forward, ma'am is here. Captain Usha would answer your queries. So please go ahead and type your questions. Ma'am, I'm looking at the chat box to filter any questions that they've put in already.
Okay.
Yeah. Ma'am, there's one question we have. This is Vanaja Saktivel. Hi, Vanaja. Ma'am, Vanaja is asking, what is your opinion about nurses' new aspect that nurses can open the private clinics in community?
Oh, well, in my opinion, being an entrepreneur is something that probably nurses have not done in the past. So as long as you desire to start up something on your own, go ahead and do it. But before you do so, you have to understand the nuances of healthcare. You have to understand the in and out of the entire world that India brings in for the healthcare aspect. So unless you are prepared, both with your finances, your knowledge, and the support that you need from the society, I think you just can't start ad hoc. You have to be very clear. You have to understand business. Now,
Right.
I always say that every nurse, every person who comes into any profession for that matter should have a business background. And that is why I took over an MBA program way early in my career. Instead of doing a master's in nursing, I was an expert at, I moved laterally to understand how do organizations work. So
Right.
unless you have the bandwidth and the critical tools that you desire to have before you start up your own venture, you cannot really succeed.
Right.
Healthcare is very, very challenging.
It is. Ma'am, there's another attendee, Ashwini. Hi, Ashwini. She wants to ask you, do you really think all capable nurses get growth in their career?
Well, that is first to understand what does capability mean. Now, what does a capable nurse mean to you might be very different. And I think being in the administrative role and the helm of affairs, any capable nurse who stands out definitely has great future. And that question will be answered with the very fact that I sit at the helm of affairs of 67 hospitals. But just being capable and not visible is not enough. You need to be capable in all aspects, 360 degrees, and get visible. And growth, there's so much of opportunity today. It's a borderless world. There are boundless opportunities. In fact, when I set up an event and I look for nurses, trust me, I don't find many. Most of them are very good at their clinical work. But as I said, you have to be good at everything that an individual brings into the organization.
Right. Right. Ma'am, we'll take another question. There is Mononita. Mononita wants to ask you, I would like to know why there is no progress in nursing wages and in the hierarchy in job level, even with additional qualification like MSc, mainly in clinical roles.
Well, I think much of this problem is created by the nurses themselves. When I joined the nursing institution, yes, I told you my story. I was really upset that I could not become a doctor. Could you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Please go on. We are here.
At the same time, I did extremely well where I belonged.
Right.
And I grew up seeing a lot of nurses truly stand in as an advocate to the organization. I have enjoyed camaraderie with the doctors. And when I stepped out of the armed forces, where we dined and we partied with the doctors and we worked together as great teams, I was really appalled with the kind of situation that existed in the country. And that's where the battle began, and that's where the decision to stay back in the country began. Right. So I think much of this damage is done in the nursing profession by the nurses themselves. Where I belong to the same profession.
Right.
Now, for example, if I, on a monthly basis, hire about 100 nurses, and this is a true story, people might not like it, people will not want to believe it, but the story remains that when I hire 100 nurses, not too many are competent enough to work in an organization like this. Many of them cannot speak. Many of them do not know the basics. So if the profession is going to have few extraordinary nurses and have the remaining of them deteriorate down, and there is a lack of discipline and devotion, it's not going to make the country believe in these nurses. And so I keep saying to my nurses, you have to exponentially grow in the way you are as a nurse. Once the nurse is trained and she's out of the institution, she stops reading. There are very few nurses who continuously upgrade their knowledge and skills. How many of them stand up in the clinical setting and work shoulder to shoulder with the doctor? So for my thoughts, I think it's important that the profession grows in its totality for the country to recognize that this profession needs its respect, welfare, wages, and everything. Today, of course, there is a talk about it, but then it's a very slow growth. So the reason why people do not pay, half of them do not even stay in the country. Now, you would say that people go to the other countries because the wages are very good there. Those countries also went through the same revolution. So time will come soon. If we produce good nurses, the country will automatically pay and respect this profession. Right.
Ma'am, there is an attendee who agrees with you, and she says she's a nurse, but she has then gotten into an healthcare IT company, and she's handling teams there. So she says, I totally agree. And even they tried to get some nurses into the healthcare IT domain, and a lot of them were not capable apart from their clinical skills.
Absolutely.
So we are on the same page. Ma'am, if you have to talk about hospital administration, a lot of them are putting in questions on nurses doing hospital administration as a course or a diploma or something. So there's Pasquina Alvarez who's asking you, nurses doing hospital administration, what are the advantages and opportunities? Can you just summarize in 2 lines, ma'am?
I think hospital administration, see, I have very clearly spelt out to people sitting here that despite my added qualification, I
Yeah.
have remained in nursing as my core vertical. I am the
Right.
group director of nursing, but
Right.
my domain knowledge in hospital administration, be it operations, finance, business, human relations, has given me an added advantage to my leadership abilities as a group head.
Right.
And that's the reason why I'm pitched as one of the top 10 employees of the Apollo Group. So for me, if you look at adding on certain qualifications so that you want to move out into a different vertical, then that's your choice. But I still feel that the country lacks good nursing leaders. So stick on to your nursing vertical, but add your qualifications and trust me. I have never been a charge nurse or a supervisor or, for that matter, a superintendent or whatever. You're visible, you have added qualifications, you're a great nurse, you can become the managing director of a company and
Right.
still look after nursing as a profession.
Right. Right. Ma'am, there are attendees who are typing in saying that they are very inspired and they want to hear you speak on different topics as well. So they're thanking you for the session and they would like to hear you speak on other topics as well. Ma'am, there is Tawfiq Qureshi who is talking about a career in critical care nursing and how advantageous would it be for her career?
Well, honestly, I feel to become a great, see, you should look at yourself 10 to 15 years up the life that you lead right now.
Right.
For me, to become something like an administrator, you need to have great clinical foundation.
Right.
Your clinical acumen must be unparalleled.
Right.
And for me, my 8 years of stint in the army, where I was exposed to clinical setup, which is very, very complex, where I was not exposed to just one specialty. So I had an opportunity to work in critical care. I had an opportunity to work in the most complex setups, be it medical centers or malignant disease centers, pediatrics, adult, surgical, medical, cardiac. So a varied exposure gives me the bandwidth to understand every aspect of the clinical administration I bring to table. So
Right.
honestly, critical care is a great startup. And then I feel that after 2, 3 years, you should move on to add much more specialities into your kitty to give you an added advantage at 10 years later in your life, probably.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Ma'am, there's an interesting question which will apply. I think the reason they're asking is the kind of schedules that all of us get into, not just nurses, but rest of us also, and being a woman and a responsible person back home as well. Justine Matthew has put in a question asking you, how do you manage the time in your busy schedule?
That's one question everybody asks me very often. Yeah, leading 67 hospitals, wearing multiple hats into digital transformation, academics, day-to-day operations in the hospital, looking at being on the committees of various important forums in the country, being a wife, being a mother. I think I set an example for everyone to emulate. So I said my choice of being married to the right person is what mattered the most in my life, because I'm married to a service officer who is still serving the Indian Air Force.
Right.
And he understands that I'm a very successful, ambitious career woman and who's left me to do more good to the nursing profession than to just be a wife. So I think it's important for nurses to choose the right partner in their life if you're really ambitious and you want good careers. 2, I think my own upbringing, my mother was a working lady, my father was working, so I grew up seeing my parents dedicate their lives to the work that they did. gave me the independence and freedom to grow up. And I brought that back to my own child, my only child. I sent him to a boarding school when he was in class 10.
Right.
I sent my son to a boarding school when he was all of age 10. Many people told me, what are you doing? But I thought that's the best thing I gave to him, because I sent him to the best school and he's grown up into a fine young gentleman, which gives me a lot of time. On a daily routine, I think I'm very committed to my work. I'm well organized. I'm very well planned. And I can wear multiple hats. I can delegate work. So I find time at the end of the day. I'm not really bogged down. And I know my priorities. And I find time for dancing. I find time for everything possible. I watch movies. I go to the gym. And I do everything possible. So if people tell you that they don't have time, it's false. Yes, tell me.
There is an interesting testimonial. Somebody has written a message for you in the chat box. Would you like me to read that?
Yes, because I can't see any here.
No problem. There's somebody by name Ashwini. She says, I always remember Usha ma'am, whom we call as Dawn, who nurtured me. I started my career in Apollo as OBG nurse and later in Bangalore as surgical ICU in charge, clinical educator. Thank you so much for the session, she writes.
Oh, Ashwini is a lovely girl and I know her personally. And I think she's learned to live life to the fullest by working closely with us. I love you too, Ashwini.
Ma'am, I have made sure that I did not miss any questions. So those are all the questions we've had. Ma'am, let me tell you, this has been the most engaging session that we've had as in a webinar, because I'm sure there are students, nurses who followed you, who were trained under you. A lot of them spread across the country and even outside. That is why we've had such a good engagement in the chat box also today. So that clearly speaks of how people follow you in your own domain also. And that's a wonderful thing to know. So we are glad we had you for the session today. And we hope that you were also happy to be part of it today.
Thank you so much. It's a lovely opportunity and I love the questions because it's my own life story. So thank you for giving me this opportunity and thanks to everyone who's logged in to hear me out. And I'm sure some of them would have worked with me. If not, you can always go Google, type Captain Usha Banerjee. You can see a few of my videos there and I'm sure you'll love that. So anytime, next time, no issue.
Yeah, ma'am, thank you so much for your time. We know you're busy, so we would leave you to take your dreams forward. Thank you so much. Bye for us, from us now, ma'am. Bye-bye.